It was on the 5th evening of my stay in the townhouse on Belgrave Street that the walls began to whisper. Not in the literal sense, of course. No tongue could shape the things I heard. No throat born of flesh could produce such quiet, uninvited syllables. Yet they came all the same, curling around the gaslight in my study like tendrils of smoke, teasing the edges of my perception. Let me begin again, in the spirit of honesty. I'm a man of sound faculties. I was, at least before I inherited the townhouse from my uncle. God rest him, who passed in his sleep and left me this narrow brick tomb pressed between the shadows of taller, quieter buildings. The house, 3 stories tall and cramped with moth-bitten drapery and peculiar smells, had a single virtue: silence. It sat in an alley where even rats tread softly. I had taken to working there, late nights revising the 2nd volume of my medical memoirs, surrounded by my papers, the faint ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall, and the irregular dripping of water in the kitchen sink. It was the 6th night cold, and still that I first heard it. A sigh, faint, drawn long, as though released from lungs unused for years. I turned, expecting to find wind sneaking through the cracked window panes, but they were shut tight, and the draft had no voice. I laughed to myself, a dry, brittle laugh. I poured another glass of port and returned to my writing, but the sigh came again. This time closer. On the 7th night, the whispering started. I had not slept much. My dreams had grown slippery and damp, like roots soaked in cold earth. Shadows lingered too long. The study door creaked even when closed, and from behind the east wall, the thinnest wall in the house, where the wallpaper curled at the edges and the wood beneath felt oddly soft, came a murmur. No words at first, just the rhythm of language, a cadence. By candlelight, I placed my ear against the wall. "Hello?" I said, foolishly. Something whispered back. It spoke not in English, nor in any tongue I had ever encountered, yet the tone was unmistakably familiar, urgent, pleading, and sad. I stumbled away from the wall, knocking over the ink pot. It bled like a wound across my manuscript. The housekeeper, Mrs. Cray, an old woman who refused to work past sundown, said only this when I asked her about the east wall. "There's no room behind it, sir." "But I hear, there's no room," she said again, sterner this time. "There never was." She quit the next morning without explanation. I could not ignore the wall. I tapped it with my knuckles. Hollow. I traced the edge of the paneling. Warped. I placed my palm against the center. Warm. The rest of the house was cold. Even the hearth struggled to keep flame. But the wall throbbed gently, like skin stretched over a pulse. I could no longer sleep. I began dragging a chair to the study, sitting motionless for hours with a notebook on my lap and a candle guttering by my side. The whispers changed, became clearer, not louder but sharper, like a voice speaking directly into my skull. "He doesn't remember," it said one night, "but he came from here." There are gaps in my memory. I admit this now. I recall finding the basement door ajar, something it had never been in all the weeks I lived there. I recall descending, barefoot and trembling, with only a box of matches. I recall the scent of mildew and something sweeter, like rot soaked in perfume. And then I remember nothing. I woke in my bed. No matches. Feet clean. Door locked. But my hand bore a new scar. A crescent across my palm, as though I'd gripped something sharp in a fever dream. And the east wall, now it breathed. I do not exaggerate. At night, when all was still, I could hear the faint intake and release, like lungs gasping beneath old timber. The wallpaper pulsed in time with it. I hammered at it. No one came. I screamed. No echo replied. A week passed. I stopped going outside. The letters I tried to send were returned, unstamped, unopened, smudged with black fingerprints I didn't recognize. The city faded from memory. Faces blurred. Only the wall remained, whispering more now, coaxing, laughing, remembering things I had long buried. And then came the first revelation. There was a room once, behind the wall, a hidden nursery. My uncle's firstborn born wrong, they whispered. Born with too many fingers and no mouth, just a fold of skin where